Olivia Lazard, Research Fellow at Carnegie Europe.
We are on the cusp of the fourth industrial revolution. For a lot of people, including in this room, this is synonymous with great excitement. A lot of economic opportunities are opening up. A lot of new markets are expanding. And new horizons of progress are in our line of vision. This is synonymous with pioneering. And for a lot of us, pioneering resonates with childhood dreams. This is about discovery. This is about an encounter into the unknown. It's a great leap, which appeals to human courage. I'm going to need you to tap into that courage throughout this presentation, much like you did throughout Nate's presentation, and you will need it for the rest of the afternoon. Because the last industrial revolution will be the last. It will either be the last through a termination shock or because of good design. In its current form, humans are currently replaying a myth of conquest, freedom, and progress powered by technology against the planet in overshoot and against nature. And if this myth of progress carries us into the Industrial Revolution, we will lose. We will go extinct. We all have agency, and we all have responsibility in preventing that. The first stop in making sure that this does not happen is to shed light on key blind spots, which are carried within the myths that are built within the fourth industrial revolution. What are those? This industrial revolution is made out of two legs. One is green. The other one is technological and digital. The green leg responds to a constrained problem. It is a carbon problem. It demands us to decarbonize. It is designed to course correct. It is designed to fix the mistakes of the last industrial revolution. The other one, on the other hand, will help humanity expand. Rumor has it that digitalization, virtualization, and technology will help us expand the economy through decoupling and dematerialization. It makes initial intuitive sense, doesn't it? If you build a virtual world, it is by definition dematerialized. It transcends physicality, which is now erected by those who believe in transhumanism as the next frontier of human progress. In spite of their different names, though, the green and the digital legs are made of exactly the same stuff. They're not green, they're not virtual, they're different shades of brown, and they are very material. In fact, as Nate mentioned, they recouple humanity with mineral extraction on a civilizational scale. Because in order to shift from fossil fuels to clean tech, and in order to build the physical infrastructure and devices that support an experienced virtual world, we need vast quantities of minerals ranging from lithium and manganese for battery storage, to copper for electrification, to rare earths for wind turbines and semiconductors. Depending on the mineral, we need between 6 and 150 times the current levels of production. And the IEA tells us that we will need 35 million tons of metals per year for at least another 15 years before we can move into a full circular economy. All of this means one thing: more mines. And here, we run into several problems. Dylan Marsh's artistic representation of copper extraction illustrates the first one. Extracting minerals can be very environmentally intensive and invasive, especially when ore concentration runs low. On average, to produce 10 grams of copper with current mines, we need to move about 1 ton of soil. The other problem is the infrastructures related to the mine itself. It requires transportation infrastructure, processing plants, tailing storage, waste deposits. This picture is one little snapshot of the Chuquicamata operations in northern Chile, which sits next to one of the biggest and oldest copper mines in the world. Those flat mountains that you see on the right-hand side of the picture are called tortas, or waste mountains. There are dozens and dozens of those on an area where cities have been built and buried under waste mountains, literally. What these two pictures show you is that extraction and processing are ecologically intensive and environmentally intensive. I'm going to pause here for a second because I don't want to send the wrong message. We need to decarbonize. This is an imperative. This is a matter of human survival and biological survival at large. That means that we need to mine. The reason why I'm showing these pictures is for two reasons. One is to give a reality check on what green growth is literally made of. The second one is to demonstrate that we need to decarbonize fast and that we need to decarbonize well. What does that mean? We need to consider the stakes and the risks in order to figure it out. First thing you need to know is that the ecological costs of the energy transition and the digital transition have never been assessed. This needs to be fixed. Fixing it requires asking not just how much we're going to mine, which may seem insignificant compared to the current levels of fossil extraction by today's standards, but where exactly we're going to mine. This US Geological Survey map of 2019 shows us a snapshot of terrestrial deposits. Outside of China, the US, Australia, and Canada, the green dots are scattered in Latin America, Africa, Central Asia, and Southeast Asia, not to mention the deep seas. Those countries that have historically been at the heart of several waves of resource scrambling and which are still historically cornered into a primary product export trap. The red and brown coloring in the background rates levels of fragility and corruption levels around the world. You can see that they largely correlate with countries that now provide so-called mitigation and digital assets. It signals that there is a major risk at play within the energy transition. That of elite predation, trickle-up economics, and trickle-down violence. Done wrong, the energy transition may well lead to more protracted and more diverse forms of violence. Done right, it will represent the ultimate opportunity for economic redistribution at a global level and a potential transformation of conflict drivers. This map asks a question that is barely ever mentioned in discussions about the energy transition. What is peace today? And how do we build it via the energy and digital transition? What are its architecture and its values? Part of this question is related to another layer of risk. The bottom map here shows you the countries that are most climate vulnerable. They neatly correspond with the same belt of countries that are mineral endowed, conflict affected, and fragile. Extracting these resources may provide much money and resources to build up budgets for adaptation in those countries, but the physical act of extraction and processing may also take away from their ecological adaptation budget. The costs inflicted on nature, biodiversity, ecological services at local and national levels therefore need to be priced into extractive ventures and into industrial partnerships. This is not a nice to have, it's a matter of security. Failing to address climate stresses and water stresses is already causing vast amounts of suffering and creating fundamental cracks in the ties that bind us all together within collective security systems. This map, therefore, asks you another question. What do security, justice, and adaptation look like within the industrial strategies sustaining an energy revolution? And what do we prioritize the use of critical minerals for? Next, there is an additional map which asks an even more fundamental question. This Bernardo Strasberg and co-map shows you where global regeneration priorities are. Those are the wells of living complexity. They help to regulate the global climate regime. They help to create rain and to stabilize the hydrological cycle globally. They hold ecological interdependencies into balance, and they sustain livable and reliable habitats for us humans and all other connected species we form a web of life with. If we lose them, the fight against climate change might as well be done and over with now. There will be no amount of tech, green or virtual, that will save us. Those ecosystems are not disposable. That means that extracting from them may well prove fatally dangerous for the planet and humanity. Some of the virgin deposits that investors are now considering correspond with those critical ecosystems. In other words, our tech story, our industrial story, is eating away at our natural story. This map is informative enough, but I want to bring it to a more powerful level and show you pictures. This is in central Madagascar. This is a chrome mine that is about 60 years old. This quarry is relatively middle-sized. It exists within the plains of carbon-sequestering grasslands and agricultural land. This is a rare earth deposit. This is the picture that you see on the left-hand side corner. It sits at the northern tip of Madagascar, in front of the most vibrant and pristine marine ecosystems that I've ever seen, where whale sharks and whales come to gestate and nidify every summer. It also sits into a protected area from a marine perspective and two terrestrially protected areas. It is connected to a larger set of ecosystems where some of the rarest and most precious species of lemurs, chameleons, and other animals exist in the world. If this rare earth deposit is extracted from, as is currently being considered, and as is currently being wanted by the Malagasy government and by a number of investors, this ecosystem will collapse. This, by now, should come as no surprise. This is a lithium mine in northern Chile. It sits within what we call the Salares, which is a very ancient ecosystem made of salt flats. Lithium is exploited through pumping brine, which is a geological type of fluid which runs under the Salares. As it stands today, the government of Chile has decided to nationalize its lithium production and therefore to reserve 30% of those Salares to biodiversity and to protection, and 70% to the extraction of lithium to try and propel it into the future of the geoeconomic gain. What we don't know is what the impact of lithium extraction will have on Salares, on ecological integrity, and on ecological interdependencies around those Salares. These ecosystems are but examples of ecosystems that are the bedrock of life and the lifeline of planetary security. What this map and these pictures should therefore bring you to as a question is, are we designing a transition that strikes a necessary balance between tech and nature? And at a time when tech is going into a narrative of transhumanism and new levels of progress, redefining it as transgressing and conquering the boundaries of physicality, are we funding and are we powering the right story to take us into the fourth industrial revolution? Or are we materializing the drivers of our own demise? Green growth and the fourth industrial revolution, as it is currently designed, is a story of plenty and bounty built on scarcity and ecological exhaustion. We need to decarbonize fast, and we need to decarbonize well. Decarbonizing well will entail using the questions that I mapped for you as guides for the last industrial revolution that we can implement, because it is the last one that will give us a potential at building economic fluxes that stay within planetary boundaries and aim to repair them as much as possible. Peace, justice, economic redistribution, adaptation, and regeneration provides us with maps of the global commons to rebuild collectively. And they're not just the direction of travel. They are the building blocks of a transition that must be ecologically oriented and which geopolitical escalation is currently threatening. Mining, processing, digitalizing, virtualizing stands at the heart of the competition between China and the US, between Europe and Russia, and between middle powers that are trying to essentially determine the outcomes of the fourth industrial revolution. This competition is a driver of planetary overshoot and therefore planetary insecurity. This competition risks repeating patterns of scrambling for resources and plundering ecology. It is bringing back, right now, as Nate was mentioning, authoritarianism, and it raises the potential for bringing back new forms of totalitarianism. And it is certainly opening up to new risks of violence on a grander scale. So what do we do? That's where system change actors come in. We need to constrain certain types of action and accelerate others. And impact investors have a key role to play in redefining economic trajectories for planetary security. First, we need to build the future of security on the back of a regenerative pact that helps to balance tech and ecology. That means no extraction without regeneration. This applies to industrial actors and business models in areas of operations, in areas of extraction and processing, between different extractive sectors, and within industrial partnerships that are currently in the making. It also means taking complex regeneration seriously. We can't plant trees to offset carbon emissions. We need to reboot ecological services by redesigning what we call water retention landscapes at ecosystems level. We now have to take regeneration on a planetary and dynamic scale. This is a whole different ballgame which requires massive investments in cooperation ventures. Investors will need to partner with those who understand the complexity of living systems, starting with indigenous communities and their allies. Second, we also need to shed light on the ecological costs of the energy transition and define where it is safe to mine, where it is not safe to mine, and to build the infrastructures that are jointed to the mines. We need to define what I call no-go mining zones, zones that will need to be protected legally and compensated, because the cost of not extracting will also have to be compensated in the form of climate justice. On the basis of new estimates for absolute quantity of ores available for the energy transition, we will need to build a diverse coalition to bring about an international negotiation framework to deal with critical minerals as a global public good. This will help to tackle demand and supply dynamics within one single platform that connects mitigation and adaptation pathways together, along with biodiversity, food, and water security. In other words, since we need to remetabolize economies on less energy use, we need to treat the means of energy as a global public good. Whilst this is in construction, responsible investments into critical mineral supply chains is important according to the highest possible environmental and social practice. The role of investments in support of relations between middle powers is critical here to define what ecological transitions will look like and to de-escalate the competition between superpowers. For example, the European Union is now striking industrial partnerships with countries like Chile, Kazakhstan, Namibia. Those can be used as sentinel partnerships to combine tech patent sharing and tech and innovation development, regeneration, and political labs to redesign the international and planetary security frameworks together. And of course, as Kate Raworth is about to demonstrate, growth will need to be modulated, sequenced, remetabolized and differentiated, and repurposed. This is key to build back a safe collective of the living, a just collective of the living, and a peaceful collective of the living. I'll give her the floor now. Thank you.